Welcome to Empowered Heart to Heart, where you'll hear messages of hope, conversations that heal, and interviews that empower. Well, hey, this is your host, Rhonda Simmons, and welcome to another edition of your go to podcast, Empowered Heart to Heart. I'm so glad that you're here with me today because we're always offering messages of hope, conversations that heal, and interviews that empower. And in today's episode, we're going to dive right into the topic that really hits close to home for many of us, and that's called imposter syndrome. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and let's embark on this journey together because we need to overcome imposter syndrome. I know I'm guilty of it, and I'm just sick and tired of it. This is a brand new year, and it's time to do something brand new. Sometimes you can ease your way out of situations and into situations. Other times you just need to bust a move. And so I'm in bust a move mode. And so let's jump right in and talk about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is that sneaky little voice telling you that you don't belong or you don't deserve your success. This was a phrase that was termed by psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes in the late 1970s. Would you believe the term is that old? Originally, people thought that the term imposter syndrome affected mainly women. It's now recognized as something that can touch anyone, regardless of gender. Today, we're going to explore the phenomenon, not just from an academic standpoint, but with the intention of offering you tools to overcome it and thrive. If you know me, you know I'm all about solutions. We spend so much time identifying problems, complaining about problems, but I'm all about solutions. And I want to know, how do I get better? How do I recover? How do I overcome? And how do I thrive? And so, psychologist Pauline Clance said years ago, despite outstanding academic and professional accomplishments, women who experience the imposter phenomenon persist in believing that they are really not bright and have fooled anyone who thinks otherwise. They have this preset mentality that they're not good enough. Have you ever felt that way? That you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not experienced enough to do whatever the task is that you are qualified to do. So here we are in our virtual living room talking about something many of us face. Because here at Empowered Heart to Heart, we believe in sharing the real and the empowering. And so we want to have a real talk, a real conversation about this phenomenon of imposter syndrome. So, all right, let's get into the nitty gritty of overcoming this imposter syndrome. First off, remember that you're not alone in this. You're not by yourself. And here with me, I want you to acknowledge those feelings and know that it's okay. It is okay that you feel inadequate. We all do from time to time. I remember one time in particular, 2 years ago, I was invited to attend a conference in Hawaii. Yes, Hawaii. It was an amazing trip. I had never been there. My husband and I went kind of as a second honeymoon. We had just remarried a couple of months before that. And so we went to Hawaii for a week, and I was asked prior to going to facilitate a session there, and it was an academic conference, and I thought that I was facilitating a session for doctoral students to share their research that they're working on. Well, as it turned out, the session I was facilitating was one where I was the only person in the room without a doctorate. Everyone else in that room had a doctorate, and they were presenting their research. And I felt so inadequate. Like, why am I here? The coordinators of the conference, they knew I was a doctoral student. They knew that I didn't have my doctorate yet, but yet I was chosen to facilitate this position. And I remember thinking all the way up until time for the position for the facilitation that I don't belong here. This is not the space I'm supposed to be in. I'm not qualified. But then, right before I got up for my turn at facilitating the session, I realized I belong here. This is where I'm supposed to be. God ordered it so that I'd be in this position. For whatever reason, none of the other participants were there at that moment to be in the role that I was. And so I had to recognize and acknowledge that all of this negative self talk was happening, and all of this limiting belief was happening in my mind. And so I encourage you, take a moment, perhaps even pause this podcast and acknowledge that imposter syndrome is a thing. Remind yourself that you're not the only one feeling this way. Even the most successful individuals have been in your shoes, so you're not by yourself. So that's step one to overcoming imposter syndrome. Step two is to reframe negative thoughts. Now let's tackle this. We're all about flipping the script here at Empowered Heart to Heart. And just like at that conference that I attended in March of 2022, I had to flip the script in my mind, or I was not going to be able to do what I was called upon to do. And so instead of fixating on what you haven't done, we need to celebrate the victories, big or small. I encourage you to keep a journal. And this is something that I've been hearing so much lately that I just need to incorporate into every part of my day, or even a small part of my day, and that is journaling. Keep a journal, create a positivity playlist for yourself, if you will. Whatever helps you reframe those thoughts. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so you are what you think you are. And so it's so important that we control those thoughts, especially the negative ones, so that we can overcome imposter syndrome. Step three in the process of overcoming it, we've got to seek mentorship and support. As I've said already a couple of times, you are not alone. You're not expected to walk this journey on your own. This is where we are taking a holistic approach to your recovery, so to speak, from imposter syndrome. Don't be afraid to lean on your support system. Seek mentorship and open up to someone that you trust. We're all about building those heart to heart connections here. And so you have to find your tribe. You have to find that one or two people. And if you're like me and you're old enough, whatever that number looks like to you, you've learned that your friend list as you get older gets shorter and shorter. Not because people are less valuable, but because there are only a small number of people that have that deep higher level access to you and to your heart. So find somebody that you trust. For me, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say unique in what I'm about to say, but sometimes I find talking to someone who doesn't know me is very helpful, simply because they don't have all of these preconceived ideas about me. They're not as critical of me, but they're truly objective because they don't have that connection. So you've got to do whichever works for you, but you've got to create a support system for yourself and a mentorship so that you have someone to talk to in those moments when you're saying, I can't do this. I don't belong here. I just can't do this. And so, again, step three is to seek mentorship and support. Step four is to set realistic goals. Here on my podcast, I encourage you to set those goals that are realistic, attainable. We've all heard the term SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. We've all heard of that, I'm sure, by this point in life. But we need to break down those big dreams into bite-sized pieces. And we need to celebrate the small victories because each step forward is a win. For example, I'll just give you a personal thing here. I need to lose 100 plus pounds. I just do. I would feel better. My health would improve. I need to lose this weight. Well, looking at 100 pounds that I have to lose is overwhelming. And it makes me feel like, you know what, that's just too big of a goal. I just can't do it. I don't see it. Well, you can't lose 100 pounds until you lose one. I know that sounds so childish and elementary, but is it not true? You can't lose 100 pounds until you lose one. And so when you break it down like that, oh yeah, I can lose 1 pound this week. I can do that. Sure, I can. That's not so hard. And now your I can't begins to turn into, oh yes, I can. And it becomes realistic. And then when you start doing that over time, then you realize, well, maybe I can lose 2 pounds in a week. You know, maybe instead of my goal being 5 pounds lost or 4 pounds lost in a month, okay, I can lose 5 pounds this month. So set those realistic goals so that you can celebrate the small wins along the way. Because there's something that happens to our brains when we experience victory and winning. Our endorphins kick in, and it just is so satisfying to our psyches until we realize, well, if I could do that, I wonder what else I can do. Let me tell you, I posted on my blog several months ago um, a particular incident that happened to me, and I called it. I entitled the blog article, "Are you qualified?" But questioning your your right to be in the room. And I was recounting an experience I had last summer where my proposal to be a presenter at an educators conference, a local chapter of an educators conference, um, it got accepted. And this was my first time. And even though I am not shy, even though I've been in ministry for over 30 years and I am so used to being in front of people, it's my comfort. Well, I hate to say it's my comfort zone, but it's my jam. It's what I do. Being in front of people and talking and being on a podcast and talking. It's just what I love to do. But this was a different setting because now everybody in the room were educators, every single person. That was the whole point of the conference. And I was there to present my coaching program for students ages 14 to 21 who are at risk for high school dropout, and that my program improves their college and career readiness. And I was so intimidated. It's not that I didn't believe in my program because I did. I created it myself. I'm thrilled about it. It works, it's proven, but I was so intimidated about it. But when my proposal got accepted, I mean, the fact that I even applied was impressive. But when my proposal got accepted, I'm like, okay. And so I did it, long story short. And I presented to people. Of course, in hindsight, I can think of different things I could have done to make it better, but I did it anyway. And you know what my takeaway from that experience was? Number one, I am qualified. Number one, number two, I can talk on my subject matter with confidence and authority. And number three, and most important, I walked away thinking, well, if I could do this at the local chapter, I wonder if my proposal will get accepted at the state conference level. And I applied back in the fall to be a presenter at the state conference coming up in February. And guess what? It got accepted. And so I am presenting at the Texas Alliance uh, Black School Educators Conference, also known as TABC. I'm presenting at that conference the end of February. And I am so super duper excited and looking forward to meeting new people. And so the point I'm making is that when you set realistic goals, they should be just enough stretch to make you slightly uncomfortable, but it can't be, well, I want to do another local chapter conference. Well, I've been there, done that. Let's move on further to the state. You already know where I'm going with this because the next conference will be national. The next one will be international. I am so super duper excited. And so you can experience this too. And when you set realistic goals for yourself, then you begin to celebrate those wins, those smaller wins along the way to those bigger goals. Finally, in step 5, embrace continuous learning. In education, we call it being a lifelong learner. It's so important and experience the joy of learning. It's okay not to know everything. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to just know everything there is about everything. I mean, nobody does. But shift your focus from the end result to the journey. In other words, it is the process that is the most valuable, the process of achieving your goal. That is the key. That is where the most learning happens. Not just, once you achieve the goal, which is wonderful, and you get to celebrate and party like it's 1999, showing my age there. However, it is the journey or the process where the real magic happens, where all the learning happens. And so it's so important that you embrace continuous learning. So, as we wrap up this heart to heart conversation on imposter syndrome, know that this is an ongoing journey. It is a process. And I'm here for you every step of the way. In fact, if you click the link somewhere around this podcast, I'm providing a free activity like homework. Yes, I am assigning you homework in this podcast, the nerve of me. And so, in this activity, it's called Draw Out Your Gremlin. And let me explain what it is. Basically, you're going to work through those 5 steps that we just talked about for overcoming imposter syndrome. You're going to work through them. You're going to have an opportunity to draw what your inner critic is. What does that look like? That negative self talk, that imposter syndrome mentality that makes you think, can I just be honest? That imposter syndrome lie that is not true, that lies to you and tells you that you're not qualified, that you can't do this. No one else in your family has done it before, and you don't belong here. And if you're like me, I've had to deal with you don't belong here simply because you're a woman. Like anybody, has the power, while you're still in your mother's womb to determine what your gender is going to be. I am who God made me. And so here I am. I am a female. That has nothing to do with my qualifications to be in the room and in the office that I hold. And so in the activity, draw out your gremlin, you're going to first draw your inner critic. What does that inner critic look like? And there'll be some samples there so you can kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. And then after you're finished drawing, yes, you get to draw, sketch it, stick figures. If you're like me, it would just be a stick figure. Then you're going to really dig into the work and ask yourself some questions like, what do you notice about your gremlin drawing? What are some of the features? What do those features represent? When is your gremlin most active? When does that inner voice kick in the most, that inner critic? What is the gremlin's purpose? What is it trying to achieve? And most importantly, what is that inner critic most afraid of? And so you're going to identify where that inner critic is coming from, those limiting self beliefs. And then, because we're not going to leave you there, then you're going to work through what it's going to take for you to move forward. How could your life change and improve if you were to ignore that inner critic? And what are you going to do? What is the one action you're going to take? Because there's got to be action. And so this is free. There's no charge for it. You can just click on the link and download it and just do the activity because that's my gift to you. Because I just believe that no matter where you are in the world, you may be dealing with that imposter syndrome that's holding you back, that inner critic, that inner voice that's telling you you can't. And there is not one shred of evidence or piece of data to substantiate that lie. The lie says you can't. In fact, let me just throw a Bible verse in here because that's who I am. The Bible says in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So, last I checked, all means all. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So, why am I lying to myself and allowing that lie to become louder in my ears than the voice of Almighty God that says I can do it, that says, oh, yes, you can? So, go with me on this journey. Take the steps that you need to overcome imposter syndrome because it's so important for you to get that victory so that you can experience the process of reaching your goals. So let's just review these 5 steps again to overcoming imposter syndrome. The first step is to recognize and acknowledge it really is a thing. It's really real. The second thing is to reframe your negative thoughts. The third thing is to seek mentorship and support. And the fourth thing is to set realistic goals. And number 5, embrace continuous learning. So all of these together work in tandem so that you can overcome. It is a process. And what you're going to find now that you're about to embark on identifying that inner critic and what that voice and that inner critic looks like and sounds like, you're going to create ways to overcome it. I promise you, you're going to feel so much better about yourself. And reach out to me and let me know what your goals are and what's that one action you're going to take towards that goal? Because I believe victory is right around the corner for you. If you will just silence those limiting self beliefs and just embrace the fact that you belong here and you deserve this spot in the room. So until the next time, be blessed, be encouraged, but most of all, be empowered. And I'll see you on the next edition of Empowered Heart to Heart.